Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's the Mac, and welcome back to another showcase of a brand new Panzer Campaigns game just released from Wargame Design Studio. It's Panzer Campaigns Spring Awakening 45. At the time of recording this video, it actually was released yesterday and announced. I want to give a big thank to Wargame Design Studio for giving me this review copy. We're going to dive into this. It's going to be, like I usually do, an introductory video showcasing what comes with the game and some historical babbling and a look at some of the scenarios and the scope of this operation. So let's get into this. So for new viewers who don't know anything about these games or haven't seen my plethora of coverage of these games on the channel, this is what the game looks like when you fired it up. This is the standard layout and the standard format of Wargame Design Studios engine and games from the great legend John Tiller's catalog, as they have taken over and are working and expanding and doing great things with. So this is it. Right. Spring Awakening 45, man. Okay, so this game was announced quite a while ago, actually, that they were working on this title, and this was some of the news on the webpage regarding this release, and now it actually was released. A very extensive game covering this certain campaign or offensive. This is a kind of a forgotten campaign in the historical annals of World War II. Everybody has a focus on the Battle of the Bulge, the Ardennes offensive, and that was the last huge attack offensive from the Germans to try to regain the initiative on the Western Front. But this was actually fought in the East. This game would be the game that falls the latest in the time period of the World War II coverage of the Panzer campaigns. This would be your last stop in this current release form. Who knows? They might release in the future the Battle of Berlin or the offensive that the Russians committed just after this failed offensive of the German army. So this took place in March 45, so just like a couple of weeks, basically, before the Germans surrendered and the Berlin was razed to the ground and the Red Horde poured into that part of Germany. So this is kind of a strange offensive. I mean, it's very, how were the Germans actually able to mount such a huge offensive at that late stage? Where the hell did all these troops come from, and what actually happened? So after the failed offensive in the Bulge, there was a few armored reserves and armored formations that were pulled out, managed to escape back into Germany. And Sepp Dietrich had the 2nd SS Panzer Corps relatively intact, and the overall, I can't remember his name, but the overall commander wanted actually them to stem the tide on the East Front as the as the Russians were pouring into Poland and the Germans were trying to defend them off. They wanted actually to use this particular army there to stop the Russians there. But they were actually diverted down to Hungary because Hitler intervened, as he had done so many times during the war. And he wanted to secure the oil fields, and basically those oil fields were supplying about 80% of oil and gasoline and diesel for the German army, and without those oil fields in German hands, it would be like the super crippling blow to the Germans to have basically no fuel for their motorized or any vehicles at all. I mean, that would be the final nail in the coffin, basically, which it actually turned out to be. So the second SS Panzer, I mean, it was a huge force. I think the Germans mustered something like over 220,000 soldiers and close to 1,000 tanks. I mean, I think it was something up to about 800 something armored vehicles, tanks. All the goodies. I mean, all those late war tanks that you read about. The King Tigers, the Tigers, the different kind of Jack Panzers, all those major and sort of badass tanks that were produced in the late war that were actually used in this particular offensive, and it was the best equipped German divisions taking part. Especially the SS had a lot of the good toys, a lot of the fancy stuff. So, yeah, we're going to be diving into different documents there and have a look. So, what you should always do is there's actually some change logs. This is going to be a version 404, which is actually a new version of the Panzer campaigns. I think that they are at 403 at the moment. So they're probably going to be updating all the Panzer campaigns to this particular version. So it says they have some bug fixes. They fixed crash due to registry settings for the classic toolbar, which no longer exists. It prevents Windows 11 by replacing MCI audio with direct sound and splash screen. Fixed the crash to desktop and game corruption when playing network direct play. Fixed the rear crash to desktop when autosave was not selected. There's some enhancements. Units are not penalized with night fatigue when moving by rail. Dynamic NATO counters drawing on the hex info display. This is the same as the Panzer Battles implementation, and NATO counters on the card will highlight when appropriate. New unit boxes to improve legibility of text, so it's easier to read stuff. And new unit box back image to improve the text, so its text sort of stands out. So there's some enhancements and stuff, which probably will be implemented on the others. So there's not that many documentations that actually comes with the game. That's what it looks like when you fire it up here. You have the user manual, which hasn't been, I think, revised, but it is pretty badass these days. But I don't think there's a new user manual for this particular game. What is very good here, as always, is the almighty notes, the designer notes. And they're quite extensive. There's almost 100 pages of designer notes, which is pretty cool. So they have your usual stuff. They have an introduction. They have why they made the game, challenges and stuff, sources, kind of books they use, and order of battles and things. PDT, designer notes, scenario designer notes, and then they have the campaign. So they have it's all split up. They have the list of the scenarios, descriptions, and stuff. So it goes on about why they made the game, and the head designer has always had a dream for this game. He sort of had it's always been an interest. I wish I would agree upon. I mean, this is kind of a very different kind of fight that the Germans actually, the last reserves were sort of wasted in this assault. If they've used them as a strategic reserve and strategic defense, they probably would have just prolonged the war. The war was lost. with the Russian war machine going at 200%, and churning out tanks, and they had superiority in manpower as well. It would have been lost. The West was pressing on there. The Allies were fighting the West. It would have just been. It was lost, but they probably could have prolonged it a bit longer. Who knows? Anyway, it's a huge force. So here are some of the sources they use. Some of these books, looking pretty badass. Some maps. They have the order of battles. Soviet, to go over that. Organization. That's a Hetzer tank there. It's a pretty cool picture. So different values and stuff. If you want to crunch the numbers, the Russians were using some new toys as well. They have those SUs 100s, big sort of self-propelled brigades that they were using. There's also going to be some Yugoslavian, some Bulgarian forces. So lots of lots of different kind of units and compositions made for like an interesting war game for sure. So they have there's different kind of versions. We're going to go over that. The designer was thinking that since this, another thing that was like a huge factor in this was it's called Spring Awakening, and actually spring was coming, and ice and snow and rainy season and all that turned the ground into a quagmire of mud. So you have basically the attack on Moscow all over again. With the mud season and everything, causing forces to be able to just crawl through the mud, and this was like a mechanized. Sort of motorized and mechanized, mostly from the German side, attack, and roads and good sort of solid ground is very important, and it was nowhere to be found. It was just terrible conditions, and the units were moving very slow. It was just terrible conditions for like a mobile warfare, since everything was muddy and the rest there. So here they have the optional rules that they are sort of suggesting for the game that is being played tested in. They are the default rules of the game. So here they go into the road leading up to Spring Awakening. So they talk a bit about the capture as you know from Budapest 45. That would actually be the title before this, when the Germans tried to relieve Budapest and go on the offensive. Operation Conrad and all that, and which also failed, and they never were able to relieve the forces of Budapest, and Budapest was surrounded, and the German army had to surrender in the final stages of that. And so this takes place just pretty southwest of Budapest, you would say, around the lake of Balaton, these huge lakes. And we're going to have a look at the map later on. So here's a good map. So here is the area of operations, basically. So the Germans had a three-pronged offensive. There's three different army groups attacking this sort of huge bulge in the lines. You have, I think you have Budapest up here somewhere, and so this was the main event. The main SS divisions that were attacking in here. They had forces coming in here to make some attacks, and they have an army Group E, I think it was, 2nd Panzer and 6th Panzer Army there. So Army Group E tried to attack here, put some pressure on them. So that's how far they got, man. The offensive started off pretty bad as well. They had some bad luck. It was a slow start, and the Russians were like pretty, stubborn defenders of this. The Russian strategy was, because they had huge build-up forces around Budapest. They had so much more forces here. But in this current attack, I think the forces were sort of even. Well, kind of. I mean, I think as I mentioned before, the Germans had about 220,000 soldiers. I think the Russians had about 440, so they had about 2-to-1 ratio there. But the Germans actually had more tanks and armor than the Russians. And then you're going to have to add in that the Germans basically had no air coverage at all. The Luftwaffe was sort of basically mostly destroyed. So the Russians were going to enjoy air superiority. So that is a huge factor as well for the defender. But what the Russians did, they decided to actually go on the defense. They wanted to repeat the tactics they used around Kursk, basically. So this would be a this really mirrors what actually happened around Kursk, even though the defenses here from the Russians were not as well prepared as Kursk. That was insane. But they went on the defense, the Russians, on purpose to wear out these German troops and grind them down and make them take heavy losses and sacrifice some of their own forces to sort of bleed out the Germans. And when they were depleted and pretty tired, and they in turn launched their huge counteroffensive in the north, massive reinforcements and massive reserves poured in, very weakly held lines on the flanks the Germans had, basically just like Stalingrad. And so they smashed through those weak defenses, and the first SS Panzer Division actually had to be sent up to sort of stem that tide, but it was too little, too late, basically. And they wanted to retreat, but Hitler refused. He wanted them just to keep on attacking, and they did that for a couple of days. But then finally they realized that we're going to be encircled. We're going to lose everything. It's going to be like Stalingrad all over again. So they pulled out and tried to stabilize the line. But that was the end. That was basically the end of this offensive. And then the Russians just kept on attacking, and the Germans were just on the defense until the fall of the war there. So it goes on about that. It's all here. So there's different kinds of scenarios in this. So we're going to have a look at some good tactical maps here as well. Pretty cool stuff. Where are the scenarios? This is old history, I think. I wonder if they take up these scenarios towards the end, maybe more. Could be here. So here you have the list of these scenarios. Yeah, so they have something called dynamic and historical. So we're going to go over that, what dynamic means. It's sort of a new feature for this design. So what is, I think I've read that somewhere. It might be in the beginning of the notes, actually. The designer wanted to, here we go. So it's all here. So let's see if I can find it. I think it has. See if I can find it. Maybe here. I lost it. Anyway, see if I can actually try to explain it. So, what it means is that the historical is as the historical campaign was, basically, that it's going to be slow movement, only 1 to 2 hexes because of the mud. It's going to show that it was very, very hard to advance. But in the dynamic, it's sort of the values have been changed in the game a bit. So there's better movement, if I could say that. It's more of a flow of the battle. It's a kind of different challenge for people to play if you want the more faster movement, and sort of they're not taking that much in consideration the mud season. It's a different take on it. If you want to play it more like that, to have more of a strategic think, to be able to move your forces a bit faster. I mean, it's sort of a different take on the historical scenario, but they also have the historical ones here. So let's just fire that up, and you can see the scope of this thing. So, what's good? It's big scenarios. It's going to take some time to load up here. Here we go. Right. So there's objective that expires as well. So you need to be, you need to capture these in certain time, or whoever controls them, it will fall to that side, basically. So there's some forces that have been fixed here and stuff. Okay, so if you look at the big map, so here you have it. Here's the whole scope of the thing as we were looking at that other map. So in the south, I'm just going to zoom out a bit. Yeah, so here you had one of the offensives. It was Army Group E. Here for Group E, so they would be the ones attacking here. Yeah, pretty small force. It was the first Cossack, no, not the Cossack division. It was the field division, the 11th Luftwaffe field division, and 104th Jäger division, and the 297th infantry division were making some attacks across these pontoon bridges they built. And their goal was to smash in. You could tell this is probably where their objectives were, to get these here. Probably that as well. Zoom out a bit. And then you have Pech, Mohawks, so Baja. Okay. So they came about this far into there. Then you have this attack that came from the west. bit bigger force here. These guys, they were quite successful actually. Panzer Group 2. Yeah, the second Panzer Corps there, Panzer Division. Okay, so they have a few divisions taking part in this attack. They have Kampfgruppe Butcher. There is the 71st Infantry Division. Is the 16th SS Panzer Division. Reichsführer. There's another Kampfgruppe here. They have the 118th Jäger Division. And the 1st Volksgewehrs Division. So this would probably be the remnants of the 1st Gewehrs Division that was used. They fought in France as well, but this is Volksgewehr, so this is probably like yeah, they even have one new thing here as well. They have new portraits. It's pretty cool stuff. Look at these, man. Really nice. They have lots of different kind of graphics. The Jaeger there, they have looking different. Here you have some Stug 3Gs. So what kind of toys do they have here? You have Kampfgrups, the Panzer Division here. See what stuff they got. So they have their artillery support, of course. Yeah, so they have, these are engineers. Here's some tanks. They have Stugs and Stug 42s. Infantry. Some more Stugs in the front there, assault guns. So not that much taking part here. The main event was in the north, right here, by Lake Balaton. This is where all the real creme de la creme was. You have the 4th Cavalry Division, 3rd Cavalry Division. You have an Hungarian one unit, the 25th Infantry Division. They're basically just holding the lines there. Here we have something, Stug 3Gs and Jack Panzer 70s. A mix, Panzer 2s, Hetzers, pretty cool stuff. The 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend, took part here. Pretty fanatical units. Cool portraits, man. So they have the Jagdpanzers and yeah, Jagdpanzers and those Jagdpanzer 70 as well. You have Jagdpanzer 4 70. Lots of fun toys. Flak, of course. Tank guns. Lots of engineers to clear these minefields. And they have the 1st SS Panzer Division, Lieberstandarte of Hitler. Very famous divisions here. So they have Panzer 4Js, Panthers. Look at these King Tigers, 11 of them. Also the Stommels. Cool portraits, man. Some more King Tigers, tank destroyers. Wow, so that's a pretty vicious division there. You have the 4th Reich Grenadier Division, 44th. So they are they are actually fixed at the start. So many of these units were actually fixed. There was only a few. They didn't attack simultaneously. 2nd SS Panzer Division, all lined up. 9th SS Panzer Division. 1st Panzer Division. 3rd Panzer Division. And the 356th Infantry Division attacking here. So it's pretty cool, man. It's all here. Of course, the Russians defending here. They're probably going to get lots of reinforcements. That's what the Russians got. They piled in reinforcements here to stop the Germans. So the main thrust was this huge force was meant to smash down here, attack all along the Donau River, and secure, basically try to cut off the Russians. They were all the way down here. They were meant to be smashing in and encircle these forces here and destroy them. That was the plan. They were going to go smashing straight down there, cut this bulge, meet up with these forces here, and then they will pocket these Russian forces and destroy them. That was the plan. So let's look at the scenarios. So you have this huge one, the dynamic. So they have the dynamic version of it. This is actually made to play Axis player, and they have an AI scripted. And these A are for head-to-head. It says 01A. And then they have the historical take in it, and then it sort of chunks up. You get to follow all the different kinds. It's sort of divided up into the different attack armies that took place. This is the 2nd Panzer Army. You get to play just that. It's just as long. It's 98 turns, but it's just covering the 2nd Panzer Army there. So, as you can tell on the map, now we're just focusing on this. And you might probably also play these. You do this, some of the, because this was kind of a small attack. But so now you're just playing this attack that took place here. So that's how it's basically divided up. So that's the 2nd Panzer Army. They have different versions. They have a head-to-head and an Axis player. Then they have these. I'm not really sure. This is a shorter one. So this is probably just a snippet of the action, I would imagine. That's usually how they divide it up. Let's see what the difference is here. So it actually looks kind of the same. But there's different takes on it. Second Panzer there. Then they follow this core fight for Kaposvar. So it's all these scenarios are sort of just taking snippets out of the huge offensive, basically. So they might have some actually covering the Russian attack as well. We're going on to March 10th. It's actually still going on, the offensive there. Maybe there's some of the last. So here you go, the 14th. You have the first SS Panzer Corps showdown at Mosey Hill. So they have smaller as well, snippets of this. They're not all huge. There's some smaller ones if you don't want to play the whole thing. So pretty cool. Yeah, that's basically what it's covering. This in scenario-wise. Looks like a really fun game. Really interesting. There's also, of course, a getting started one. I haven't played this one yet, actually. It's taken in context. The battle of the last major German offensive on the morning of the 8th, the objective of the 12th SS Panzer Division, commanded by his Brigadeführer Hugo Krass, was to cut the road between Ennian zone of operations, the 1st Cavalry Corps, and capture Deg. So it's a snippet of that attack you get to do in the getting started here. So wow, yeah, I think this is going to be enough for an introductory video. Definitely going to be playing something out of this. Have a look, man. What do you want? Do write in the comments and stuff. What do you want me to try out? Which of the fronts you want me to duke it out on? So let's just open that real fast. The main one. It'd be fun to try any of those 3 attack routes and see what kind of scenarios they have in depicting that certain action. So main event, second event, and third event, basically. So it'd be fun to see how this game actually plays out versus the AI. Obviously the best is versus human opponent, but we'll see what they have. They made some improvement on the AI, so it'll be fun to see how it actually has improved. Yeah, so I think that's going to be doing it for this. I have talked a lot about it, or I feel. I'm going to talk more about it in the Let's Play as well, but I just want to give you a heads up of this great game that's just been released. head over to Wargame Design Studio and get it if you want to complete your Panzer campaigns collection, or if this is something that really has your interest. This last major offensive of the German army. It's your poison. Just pick it, man. Right, so I want to end it here. I'm going to thank you for watching, and we're going to see you in the next part. It's going to be a Let's Play, and we're going to be doing a scenario from this fantastic title. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.